This time, we visited a special gathering at a center in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province.
옛날에 통장은 도장 찍고 뚜껑 덮어주고 그 종이 통장을 생각하시면 되고 은행원이 하나씩 기록해서 도장 찍던 그거. 은행은
People learn sign language words in a friendly ambiance. They are members of the Songrami Club, who learn sign language to be able to communicate smoothly with people who can't hear.
제2 외국어를 배우고 있다는 생각으로 지금 수어를 공부하고 있습니다.
다른 언어를 또 제가 습득을 한다는 게 되게 기쁨이 있는 것 같아요.
The club members have been meeting twice a month for the past 4 years to study sign language. They also stage performances to share the value of sign language with the public.
뜻이 맞는 사람들이 좀 모여서 봉사도 할 겸 수어도 같이 공부할 겸 해서 만든 동아리인데요. 처음에는 공부를 하려고 모였다가 수어 노래를 해보고 수어 연극을 해보니까 그게 너무 재밌는 거예요. 그래서 수어 공연 전문팀으로 목적을 달리하여 지금은 활동을 하고 있습니다.
There is one very important rule in their sign language performances. It's easy to notice at their rehearsals.
이거 유튜브 영상에서 나온 거고요. 이제 선생님이 이제 이걸 저희들한테 바꿔주셔야 돼요.
이게 완전히 이거죠. 노랫말 수지한국어. 그러니까 지겨. 나는 내가 빛나는 별인 줄 알았어. 이게 그 단어로 따지면 다 맞아요. 뭐뭐 하는 줄 알았다. 뭐 하는 줄 알았다. 근데 이제 그렇게 쓰기보다는 나는 나를 봤을 때 나는 내가 봤을 때 빛나는 별인 이게 단어 이어가는 것보다 의미 전달이니까.
Instead of simply matching sign language to song lyrics, they follow the guidance of their instructor to use sign language that is closer to the language of the deaf.
원하는 거? 농인들이 그런 수어 노래하는 영상이나 공연을 봤을 때 너무 이상하고 어색하고 무슨 말인지 모르겠고 그런 입장 차이가 있더라고요. 그래서 이제 최대한 그런 간격을 조금 줄여드리기 위해서 한 달에 한 번이라도 와서 이렇게 좀 도움을 드리는 거, 제 역할은 그 정도예요.
수어를 알리고 싶고 낯선 언어로 그냥 몸짓으로 보지 않고 이거를 언어로 소통하는 걸로 좀 받아줬으면 좋겠는데 이 내용이 전달이 됐으면 하는 마음에 그 노래조차도 가능하면 농식으로 좀 설명을 풀어서 공연을 하고 있죠.
Sign language is not something people often encounter in daily life. That's why it can feel distant and difficult to understand. To bring sign language closer to the general public, these people use a familiar method: songs. Having deaf parents, I truly appreciate their efforts to publicize sign language.
저희가 조금 그런 다가갈 수 있는 그런 기회를 좀 만드는 그 방향으로 좀 예쁘게 좀 봐주셨으면 좋겠어요.
경계가 없었으면 하는 마음이에요. 아직도 멀었지만 그냥 작은 거 한 단계. 그분들이 보시기에 조금 기특해라고 말이라도 한다면 그거라도 저희는 잘하고 있는 거다라고 생각합니다.
There is more to sign language than just gestures. It is someone's native language, and a language that opens the door to a closed world. It's about time our society changed for those with hearing loss. We look forward to the day when all of us can share this quiet yet passionate language.
똑같은 답을 말하는 조각난 세상 매일매일 부딪히는 무렵화음 그 틈을 파고드는 멜로디 우체색 세상이 신나는 무대
The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. Be with Taekwondo.
Coupang CEO Park Dae-jun steps down, taking responsibility for the massive data leak as police conduct a second day of raids at the company's headquarters. The government vows strict legal action, reviewing ways to possibly punish the e-commerce giant. The government unveils a strategy to bolster domestic supply chains for key materials and establish a new southern semiconductor belt to expand infrastructure beyond the capital, as President Lee Jae-myung calls semiconductors the core of the nation's economic resurgence. South Korea is set to export nearly 200 ground combat vehicles to Peru, including K2 main battle tanks. This marks the K2's first entry into Latin America, a deal officials say paves the way for broader expansion in the region. Good evening. We begin with the latest from the recent massive data breach at e-commerce giant Coupang. Amid mounting public pressure, the company's CEO has stepped down. Meanwhile, the government has announced measures to prevent such occasions from happening again, with the police conducting a second day of their search and seizure operations at the company's headquarters. Our Park Gun-woo starts us off.
11 days after Coupang's massive data leak came to light, the company's CEO Park Dae-jun stepped down on Wednesday, saying he would take responsibility. While some see the move as effectively a dismissal, for now Harold Rogers, CEO and general counsel of the firm's U.S. headquarters, Coupang Inc., will take over temporarily to stabilize operations and calm customers down. That comes as civic groups, including the Korea Consumer Federation, held a press conference on Wednesday announcing that they filed for collective dispute mediation, seeking compensation of up to around $340 per person. And as the fallout grows, South Korea's Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, during a national policy coordination meeting on Wednesday, spoke firmly on how the government will deal with the case.
In a digital society, protecting people's personal information is the most fundamental responsibility of platform companies. The government will conduct a swift and thorough investigation into the cause of the incident and take strict action against any violations of the law. We'll also thoroughly prepare institutional reforms.
The Prime Minister's office also announced plans to reinforce information security systems and expand executive accountability, shifting from a reactive approach to a preventive one. As the Personal Information Protection Commission, working under a joint public and private investigation team, looks into whether Coupang violated mandatory safety measure requirements related to the leak, the commission spoke on Wednesday about how the company should revise its clauses.
As Coupang's terms of service are unclear about the company's liability and burden of proof for damages caused by intent or negligence, creating confusion for users, we requested that Coupang revise the clauses.
The commission also said it had asked Coupang to simplify its overly complicated membership withdrawal process. Although these measures are recommendations rather than mandatory orders, Coupang is required to submit the results of its actions within 7 days. Police also continued their search and seizure investigation at Coupang's headquarters on Wednesday morning, marking the second day of the raid after officers spent 10 hours on site the day before. Investigators say more time's needed as the massive data has been difficult to secure, given that the leak is believed to have taken place over several months. 박건우, Arirang News.
Now, President Lee Jae-myung presided over a semiconductor strategy meeting earlier on this Wednesday afternoon with his ministers and industry insiders amid plans to strengthen South Korea's global presence in the industry. Our correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
With what's seen as high-tech changing at breakneck speed, President Lee Jae-myung says the semiconductor industry is the way forward for South Korea.
어쨌든 대한민국도 잠깐의 혼란을 벗어나서 이제 새롭게 도약해야 되는데 산업 경제 발전이 그 핵심이라고 생각이 되고 그중에서도 반도체 분야가 아무래도 우리가 매우 경쟁력을 가지는 전망 있는 영역으로 생각됩니다.
At a time when the fight for semiconductor supremacy is being described as a war between countries, President Lee chaired a meeting with ministers and industry insiders on Wednesday to discuss ways to boost South Korea's competitiveness. Lee stressed the need to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem.
전 무방 산업들도 그렇고 지금 주로 논의되는 소위 소부장, 소재 부품 장비 분야는 해외 의존도가 매우 높다는 얘기들도 있고.
Although South Korea is a global leader in chip manufacturing, it trails competitors such as Japan and the US when it comes to materials, components, and equipment technology and production. To address this, the government plans to provide expanded fiscal and financial support for semiconductor materials and component suppliers. It will also launch the Trinity Fab, an evaluation to mass production chip fabrication plant in Yongin City, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2027. Another major initiative is expanding semiconductor infrastructure beyond the capital region.
For stable growth and a strong supply chain, we can no longer concentrate the semiconductor industry only in the capital region.
The industry ministry plans to establish what it calls the Southern Semiconductor Belt, connecting the cities of Gwangju, Busan, and Gumi. Gwangju will serve as a hub for advanced packaging, Busan for power semiconductor production, and Gumi for materials and components. So the question now is whether what was discussed this time will propel South Korea into the Lee administration's goal of the world's top two semiconductor powers. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea saw over 200,000 jobs added year on year in November. However, the data shows that employment among young people in key industries continues to decline. Our Park Jun-an has the latest numbers.
South Korea added 225,000 jobs in November compared to the same month last year. This marks the second consecutive month of job growth hovering around the 200,000 mark. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday, the total number of employed people stood at 29,046,000 last month. The increase was driven by health and social welfare services, which added 281,000 jobs. However, key industries continue to show weakness, with employment in the manufacturing sector falling by 41,000 and construction down by 131,000, marking 17 and 19 consecutive months of job losses, respectively. While the overall employment rate has risen by 0.2 percentage points year on year, which is the highest rate for any November, the employment rate for those aged 15 to 29 dipped by 1.2 percentage points in the same period, losing 177,000 jobs.
It appears that the recent shift toward experienced hires and occasional recruitment is making it harder for young people to find jobs. Many workplaces where young people work are concentrated in industries like accommodation, food services, and manufacturing, and the difficulties facing these sectors also seem to be affecting the amount of young people's employment.
Economically inactive individuals taking time off to rest reached just over 2.54 million in November, up 124,000 from a year earlier and marking the largest level ever recorded for that month. Especially the economically inactive population in their 30s also rose to 314,000, the highest November figure on record. A government official explained that the number of people who were previously classified under childcare or household duties has decreased, and more are now being counted as those taking time off to rest. This shift is contributing to the rise in this category among the economically inactive individuals. 박준환, Arirang News.
South Korea has sealed a landmark agreement with Peru to sell 195 K2 tanks, a deal that Seoul expects will become its largest ever defense export to the region, marking a milestone for the K2 tanks' global reach. Our Pyongyang has more.
South Korea is poised to make a significant breakthrough in the Latin American defense market after Peru agreed to procure nearly 200 units of Korean-made ground vehicles. According to the presidential office, the Peruvian army will receive 54 K2 main battle tanks and 141 wheeled armored vehicles under a comprehensive agreement signed with Korean defense firms and Peru's state-run enterprise. While final contract negotiations are still underway, officials say the deal is expected to become the largest Korean defense export to Latin America and the first entry of the K2 tank into the region. The K2 has already strengthened its international standing through multi-billion-dollar supply contracts with Poland and performance demonstrations across Europe. National security officials say the Peru deal represents a pivotal step towards expanding Seoul's global defense footprint.
K-Defense is laying the foundation to become one of the world's top 4 global defense powers. We are launching a presidential-level control tower to drive these efforts forward.
President Lee Jae-myung welcomed the development, expressing hope that the agreement will elevate bilateral defense cooperation and lead to a sustainable, mutually beneficial partnership. If the export proceeds smoothly, Seoul expects the deal to serve as a foothold for expanding Korean defense exports across the wider Latin American market. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
In a break with the past, both the U.S. and China made no mention of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in their recently unveiled defense policy papers. Concerns are mounting, with some saying that the two superpowers are no longer seeing tensions on the peninsula as a priority. Now, to talk more on this, we invite our Kim Bo-kyung into the studio. Bo-kyung, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Doyan.
Now, first, in late November, China unveiled its arms control white paper, where the term complete denuclearization was dropped. Now, what is this about?
Right, so the paper was an update for the first time in 20 years. And the biggest change of this recent military paper was that it omitted the term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The 2005 version of the paper explicitly stated that China supports this, but now in 2025, it departed from that policy by just saying that China adopts an impartial stance and adheres to the right approach of working for peace and stability on the peninsula and the resolution of Korean Peninsula issues through political means. Now, one expert says Beijing has not moved away from denuclearization itself, as it values the UN system that is putting sanctions on Pyongyang's nuclear program. However, China also does not have any practical means to put a stop to this program. And as Beijing, too, needs to keep Washington in check, it does not feel any need to worsen its ties with the North.
China now realistically believes that denuclearization is no longer possible. And because it currently needs to improve its relationship with North Korea, it has little will to push strongly for North Korea's denuclearization and doesn't want to use the tools at its disposal to do so.
Now, it's not just Beijing. We're talking about Washington, too, and that's the reason why Seoul is even more concerned about the omission of denuclearization on the peninsula, right?
Right. So the new U.S. national security strategy released by the White House last Friday, it also failed to mention the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In the document released during the former President Joe Biden administration in 2022, the NSS mentioned Pyongyang 3 times, saying Washington would pursue diplomacy for the complete denuclearization of the peninsula while strengthening its extended deterrence. The one released in 2017 from Trump's first administration also mentioned North Korea 17 times, saying the U.S. would work with allies and partners to achieve CVID of the peninsula. Now, experts say it would be hard for the Trump administration to say North Korea is a de facto nuclear state. However, the importance of dealing with peninsula issues has been waning in the U.S. for some time, and it cannot be denied that the U.S. believes pursuing denuclearization on the peninsula is quite unrealistic.
Trump could think that the denuclearization issue could be a potential stumbling block to U.S.-North Korea summit diplomacy. Also, Trump is now looking for a grand bargain with China, not just on trade, tariffs, and economic issues, but also bringing nuclear controls and broader security concerns to the table.
The Trump administration is viewing the pursuit of North Korea's denuclearization as unrealistic. The administration's primary concern is no longer North Korea's nuclear armament or provocations, but rather it is focusing on containing China. So it would be right to say that denuclearization has essentially disappeared from the administration's main policy agenda.
Now, as the issue of denuclearization of the peninsula is going down the priority list for both U.S. and China, it must put more pressure and burden on South Korea. So what are some experts are actually saying that Seoul needs to consider its own nuclear armament. What is this about?
Right. So many experts say that such admissions from the U.S. and China's defense papers hint at their lowered priority of denuclearization. And some add that the U.S. needs to give a green light to South Korea when it comes to its own nuclear armament. For example, Harry Kazianis, chairman of the National Security Journal, highlighted that if the U.S. is a true ally, it should remove all restrictions and allow not just South Korea but also Japan to forge their own paths in self-defense. The expert I talked to also said that now that Washington is asking for its allies, Seoul and Tokyo, to boost their military capabilities and deal with problems in the region on our own, it is possible for Seoul to open up talks for nuclear armament, and that perhaps Washington's approval for nuclear-powered submarines was a start.
If possible, the United States now wants South Korea and Japan to cooperate and resolve problems in East Asia themselves, and it has shown a willingness to provide the necessary military capabilities or support to back that up. In that sense, I believe the path for South Korea to pursue its own nuclear armament is also open.
All right, thanks for the insightful coverage.
Thank you, Doyan.
South Korea has officially been chosen to host the 2028 UN Ocean Conference, one of the world's largest and most influential high-level gatherings on marine sustainability. This will come just 2 years before the 2030 target year for SDG 14. Our Ian Jin has the details on its significance.
The UN General Assembly on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved a resolution officially designating South Korea and Chile as co-hosts of the 4th UN Ocean Conference. With no abstentions, there were 169 votes supporting the resolution and 2 against, the United States and Argentina. The triannual meeting is hosted by 1 developed country and 1 developing country, which means Korea will host the main event in June 2028 and Chile a high-level preparatory meeting in 2027. This conference concentrates on advancing Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is the UN's Life Below Water goal, focused on conserving and sustainably using oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. The South Korean Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries plans to select the host city through a public bid open to local governments in the first half of next year. But even before Korea was confirmed as the host of the event, Busan had already expressed strong interest and been actively pursuing a bid to be the host city. During a plenary session on Monday, Oceans Minister Chun Jae-soo said that the 2028 conference will be a defining moment for all stakeholders to come together for a more effective collaboration and concrete action plan, making it a crucial milestone just 2 years before the 2030 target year for SDG 14. The 3rd UNOC was held in Nice, France, from June 9th to 13th this year, co-hosted by France and Costa Rica, drawing some 15,000 participants, including 55 top-level officials from around the world. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
It was a full year of celebrating the normalization of South Korea and Japan's diplomatic ties, which have been volatile for years. What's proving to be a steadying force are the conversations and relationships built among people across the two societies. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
25-year-old Hiyori Morisawa initially came to Seoul for a short exchange program, but ended up enrolling in a Korean university, withdrawing from her undergraduate studies in Japan.
While learning the language, I gained a deeper understanding of Korean culture. The concept of jong, an enduring sense of emotional connection. That experience made me feel closer to Korea and love it more.
She was one of the participants at the 21st Korea-Japan Speech Contest organized by the Japanese Embassy in Seoul. For 2 decades, people of all age groups have delivered talks on subjects close to their hearts in each other's language, showing how interpersonal connections have withstood political swings in bilateral relations. 16-year-old Bae Jin-woo says his relationship with Japan grew due to his love of ice hockey.
I used to play ice hockey, and seeing Korean and Japanese teams compete together showed me differences in culture and style, and how sport can serve as a bridge between the two countries.
A separate youth roundtable inspires cooperation and unity among young Koreans and Japanese against major challenges facing their generation. Part of Japan's Genesis program that promotes understanding among young people in the Asia-Pacific. The most recent virtual session focused on disaster preparedness.
This discussion aims to explore how both countries can respond to natural hazards such as earthquakes and flooding, risks that can occur not only in Japan and Korea, but anywhere in the world. The topic was also deemed a shared priority when then Prime Minister Ishiba and President Lee Jae-myung met in September. Both sides agreed to strengthen cooperation and pursue joint preparedness efforts.
Participants shared how both countries respond during major emergencies.
I experienced the 2016 Gyeongju earthquake while I was studying in the library one evening, and I had to rush home. Earthquakes are far more frequent in Japan, which is why preparedness is essential. I wanted to compare how disaster readiness is approached in Korea and how response systems are structured in Japan.
Confronting shared challenges through dialogue beyond leader and government level, civilian exchanges are creating common ground over traditional sticking points and perceptions. This coming significantly in the 60th year of normalizing relations between Korea and Japan.
Communications in the private sector have rapidly increased. Japanese cinema is a blast in Korea, and also I believe that a Korean-Japanese director has made this amazing movie in Japan, which has also been a hit. These days, dating apps are even connecting Japanese people and Korean people within the private sector. Despite having political differences, despite having historical disputes, I believe that in the future, especially the younger generation, have a very optimistic future ahead of us.
While shuttle diplomacy strengthens top-level engagement, these people-to-people encounters are fortifying the foundation of future-oriented relations across all generations in Korea and Japan. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Songs from global star Rosé of Blackpink and the popular Netflix animation K-pop Demon Hunters have dominated multiple year-end Billboard charts in the U.S. Billboard said on Tuesday, local time, Rosé's smash hit collaboration single with Bruno Mars, 아파트, placed 9th on the 2025 year-end Hot 100 chart, while BTS member Jimin's Who came in at 57th. Riding on the film's global success, the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack secured 7 spots on the chart. Golden reached number 25, followed by Your Idol at number 54 and Soda Pop at number 61. How It's Done placed at number 68 and What It Sounds Like at number 83, while Free and Takedown entered the chart at number 92 and 93 respectively.
Both today and tomorrow will stay milder than usual for this time of year. The temperature in Seoul rose to around 10 degrees Celsius this afternoon. It will rise back up to 8 degrees during the day tomorrow. However, a brief cold snap will follow, with the morning temperature plunging to -4 degrees on Friday. With these big temperature swings, make sure to take good care of your health. Rain will begin in the central regions and the Jeollado provinces at dawn tomorrow, then spread across the country. Most areas will only have about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province with low temperatures will see heavy snow of more than 10 centimeters. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 6 degrees, Daejeon at 5 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 12 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju, 16 degrees in Busan. More rain or snow is forecast around the country on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Do-yeon. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. Be with Taekwondo.
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang. Knock knock. The magical door to the world of K-animation is swinging wide open. Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Pony Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Pinkfong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Kabion by your side, you can become a Kabion master and save humanity like a total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-kyan. The South Korean government says it's aiming to restart dialogue with North Korea by 2026, laying out a vision for peaceful coexistence backed by stronger coordination with surrounding powers. But recent developments raise new questions as China's latest white paper quietly drops its usual stance on denuclearization, and the Trump administration's national security strategy doesn't mention North Korea at all. Pyongyang is expanding ties with Russia. Kim Jong-un's daughter is taking on a more public role, and two major party meetings are just approaching. Now, as the landscape shifts, so do the calculations for both diplomacy and deterrence. For a deeper discussion on the latest situation, we are joined in the studio by Ko Myung-hyun, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Good to see you, Dr. Go.
Good to see you.
And also joining us is Mark Barry, Associate Editor Emeritus at the International Journal on World Peace. Good to see you, Dr. Barry.
Yes, glad to be back.
So let's start right away with Dr. Go. So like I've said, the presidential office is looking forward to reaching out and resuming talks with North Korea by next year, of course, with the help of other countries as well. What kind of specific steps do you think could actually get the two Koreas to talk again?
Well, I think the expression of a dialogue is really an expression of principle. I think all South Korean administrations of the past have expressed the same intention about engaging North Korea in dialogue, peaceful coexistence as well. But I think it's noteworthy how the government clarified what the process will be. And I think it's important to pay attention to what the National Security Advisor, Ri Sung-nak, said the other day during the press conference. I think we clarified that this peaceful coexistence in the process is going to be a little bit different from the President Moon Jae-in's administration's the Korean Peninsula peace process. What he means by this is that he really highlighted the importance of engaging North Korea in conjunction with the neighbors, the allies of South Korea, especially the United States. We have to remember that President Lee, when he visited Washington in September, he characterized the coordination about North Korea policy between Washington and Seoul as being United States being the peacemaker and South Korea being the pacemaker. And Mr. Wee reiterated this role, divisional role between the two countries. So I think what Mr. Wee is trying to say here is that there's going to be engagement, there's going to be outreach to North Korea. But unlike in the previous examples, that this is not going to take place as a separate effort from our alliance with the United States. So in that sense, it's a very conservative approach towards North Korea. So I don't think the government is going to say put essentially engage in activities or action that could undermine the alliance with the United States. And I think in this context, Mr. Wee said that there will be no change to the scheduled joint military drills between South Korea and the United States next year.
So would it be in accordance with Washington?
Exactly.
But on that, Dr. Berry, I recall previously you've mentioned that it's really hard to predict when the talks will actually resume, and that there's possibility for Washington to, engage in dialogue first before South Korea does. Do you still share that view, or if so, what kind of when might that actually happen?
It just occurred to me, if Kim Jong-un would create the Pyongyang Peace Prize made in gold and say, President Trump, come and meet me in Pyongyang and I'll give this to you, that might help. And I'm almost half serious about it, given how the FIFA gave such a gift to President Trump at the White House the other day. But, if we look back on late October, it kind of makes sense why there was not a meeting. And I think it all boiled down to the fact that while President Xi was in South Korea, nothing could upstage his presence there. And I think President Trump was quite sensitive to that, and certainly Kim Jong-un was quite sensitive to that. But of course, there are other reasons. I think that, yes, there's the Party Congress that North Korea will likely have take place in February, and that generally sets the direction for not only the rest of 2026, but for possibly the next several years. And of course, if President Lee of South Korea can somehow meet with President Xi in the first few months of next year, that would be an important stepping stone. But ultimately, everyone's saying that the next opportunity when physically President Trump will be in the region is when he makes his state visit sometime in April to Beijing to meet with President Xi, and he can meet with Kim Jong-un on the way back home, whether it be in Pyongyang, whether it be in Guam, as some people are suggesting, or as I've suggested in a previous program, even in Honolulu at a secure U.S. Air Force base. But at the same time, there's many other things going on, and it may not be, from Kim's point of view, in his interest, in North Korea's interest, to take any action at this point and just simply to wait out until there's a certain degree of capitulation on the part of the United States and on the part of South Korea to the terms that he believes are more preferable.
So we're really seeing China's role grow and grow lately. But one thing notable lately was that Beijing left out its usual support for denuclearization in its recent defense white paper. Dr. Go, how do you read into this?
Well, I think there's a tendency to play down what the Chinese have omitted in this non-proliferation paper. Well, it's the first paper that came out in 19 years. So things have changed a great deal since then. North Korea is clearly much more capable and in terms of nuclear weapons and so forth than when it started out 2 decades ago. So some people say this is a natural acknowledgement of the reality on the ground. But I think it's important that this paper came out this year, and then one of the major events that took place in Beijing in terms of North Korea-China relations was Kim Jong-un's visit to Beijing for the occasion of the Victory Day celebration in September. And I think it was noteworthy event, not just because Kim Jong-un was standing shoulder to shoulder with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, but also because North Korea and China essentially, in a way, accepted North Korea's rhetoric of the new Cold War and the bloc formation confrontation between North Korea, China, Russia on one hand, and the United States, Korea, and Japan on the other. And this acceptance that China had been very critical of shows that I think China is willing to consider North Korea to be a player now, a strategic player, and a player that has nuclear weapons. And in that sense, I think it's not just about the tacit acceptance or acknowledgement of the reality on the ground, but also the possible empowerment of North Korea going down the road. So we should really watch carefully what China's action will be in the next stage, because I think that's going to show more about the future Chinese intentions regarding North Korea.
It definitely shows how North Korea's position has changed over the years. Now, also worth noting was North Korea not being mentioned at all in Trump's new NSS. That's quite unusual since Pyongyang has always been called a major threat over there. Dr. Barry, do you think this signals U.S. disinterest or quite lead up to talks?
Well, I think that, first of all, in many ways, these national security strategy reports are kind of like, a corporation's annual report for stockholders. It's to kind of thump up, what we're all about and what we hope to achieve and so forth. And boy, if you're European, it's a very offensive document. But for and also it treated with kid gloves Russia and to a lesser extent China. And as you said, it did not mention North Korea, which probably is a way of saying we don't want to say anything too downtrodden that would make Kim feel that U.S. has not changed. But frankly, any real change in U.S. policy will only come from President Trump, and it will probably appear first on Truth Social. At the same time, interim U.S. Ambassador Kevin Kim has said that denuclearization is still the policy, and he is insisting on underscoring that even today in his meetings with foreign ministry officials. So that is the policy, and as I've said on previous occasions, in many ways the real policy appears to still be the Biden policy. But just the same, it's an interesting document to give the flavor of what is in the minds of the Trump administration. I don't even necessarily think it's in the mind of President Trump, who basically sees the world in terms of business opportunities, which is disguised as diplomacy. And I think that's what we're seeing in Ukraine, to a certain extent with Middle Eastern countries, and to a certain extent with China as well. But at the same time, he won't be there forever, and people will succeed President Trump. And if they happen to be Republican, whether it be Vance, Rubio, or anyone else, the items that are in this document may have a much longer shelf life than we think. So it's anyone's guess, but these documents have been coming out since 1987. They had a good reason to come out under President Reagan because there were huge changes happening in the Soviet Union, and a number of them came out up through the early years of the Clinton administration, but much less so in more recent years. But this is the 18th iteration of the national security strategy, and it's a really interesting one.
Right, definitely. Since superpowers like the U.S. and China are also being involved. So we are going to keep close tabs on their latest movements moving forward. But what about for South Korea, Dr. Barry? What more do you think South Korea can be doing to push for a nuclear-free peninsula?
Well, obviously, from what Kevin Kim apparently said today, from what I just read, the United States is not too happy with any use of terminology other than denuclearization. The idea of a nuclear-free peninsula has all sorts of connotations that at least the State Department doesn't like. But again, where is the North Korea policy on the part of the United States? It's not coming from the White House, where Marco Rubio spends most of his time, and it's not really coming from the East Asia and Pacific Affairs Bureau in the State Department so much. It's just sort of a little of this, a little of that, and Pete Hegseth is thumping about what a great ally South Korea is, and it's going to be rewarded for being such a good partner. There's all sorts of implications to that, but if you're North Korea, you're basically looking at South Korea and saying, no matter who was president, had Moon Jae-in been succeeded by someone from his own party rather than President Yoon, and regardless of what party is in power in the office of the president, North Korea seems to have made a decision to say the heck with the South Koreans. They're the 800-pound gorilla in Northeast Asia, outside of China, and we really are better off not dealing with them at this point. And hence you see this incredibly close relationship with Russia, which will be be only as good as until Putin is in so much trouble domestically, particularly if he has to call up a conscription by April to continue to fight in the war in Ukraine, and then find out that the North Koreans will be taken for a ride, and Kim Jong-un will be getting the short end of the stick. But that's the decision that he's made on South Korea right now, and I just don't see, much change or anything that South Korea can really do on its own, other than to say the right things.
So we'll really have to look out for the moves of our neighboring countries. And speaking of regional powers, Dr. Go, the NSS hints that the U.S. actually wants South Korea being more involved in deterring China from invading Taiwan. At this point, how do you think Seoul can shape its security and foreign policy in this growing rivalry between the two superpowers?
Well, I think for South Korea, the equation is quite complex because the new NSS implies that there's going to be changes to the nature of the alliance between South Korea and the United States, because so far up to now, the alliance that we have with the United States is mainly, actually, most exclusively about deterring North Korea from attacking the South. Now the NSA is hinting that there's going to be change to that security architecture that we are so used to. So it really imposes a dilemma on South Korea, because, not so much about the fact that South Korea could be enmeshed in a potential conflict between United States and China. It's less about that. It's more about how can we maintain the high level of deterrence against North Korea when the alliance is going to look, not away, but then have a new focus on deterring China in the region. So that's going to be Korea's first challenge. So I think the two sides are very much in discussion right now. But I think there's some preliminary agreement between the two sides about how South Korea's security posture will be towards China in the future, and then what will be the role of the U.S. forces in Korea in the same context. And so far, the United States and South Korea have agreed that the United States will respect the tacit agreement that we had with the United States back in 2006, where the status of the U.S. forces in Korea will be about North Korea primarily, but if there's going to be any change to the status of U.S. forces in Korea, it will only happen under the close consultation with Seoul. So that places essentially a limitation to the changes in the alliance, which actually essentially is an insurance policy for South Korea. So that's going to be one way to mitigate the potential risk of fundamental change in the security situation and architecture in this part of the world. But overall, I think United States means well through NSS. I think the United States wants to empower South Korea. This is the reason why South Korea and the United States have agreed that South Korea will be allowed to construct or build its own nuclear-propelled submarine. So it's going to give South Korea more strategic autonomy. And I think with more strategic autonomy, we more empower the South Korea. That's going to act as a deterrence effect on China. If China has a revisionist designs in this part of the world, they have to face not just a more powerful Japan, but also more powerful South Korea. And I think that's the key to maintaining stability in this region.
Then while that's ongoing, ties between North Korea and Russia are also deepening. In fact, but lately, the Russian ambassador to Pyongyang, who was key in deepening ties, actually passed away. So how would this latest event actually impact their growing cooperation moving forward?
It's a pity because Ambassador Masegura is an old hand when it comes to Russia-North Korea relations, and then I think this is there's a concern that because it's passing, there will be some hiccups to the preparation for Kim Jong-un's return visit to Russia. That's expected to take place sometime next year, and the reason is because North Korea is a notoriously difficult partner to have some sort of a diplomatic engagement. So there is sudden change of heart. There's a last-minute cancellation on the part of North Korea. These are very idiosyncratic North Korean moves that even Russians have difficulties with. And the fact of the matter is that Ambassador Masegura was really a veteran when it comes to Russia-North Korea relations. He knew North Korea well because that's where the bulk of his career had taken place. So loss of such an experience, and it's going to be keenly felt on both Moscow and Pyongyang, because it was essentially a very good intermediary between an interpreter of North Koreans' idiosyncrasies for the Russians. So his passing is going to be a major loss for the Russian diplomacy, as well as for North Korea.
Right. His absence could really shake up more than just protocol, and we'll see how the ties develop in the future. But shifting gears, Dr. Barry, I know it's too early to read into this, but let's also touch upon Kim Joo-ae before we conclude. She reappeared after 3 months, and it's now showing more independent movement. Do you think this actually points to a step forward in their grooming as Kim Jong-un's successor?
Let me just quickly add a point about Ambassador Matsugora. Also Foreign Minister Lavrov is sort of on the outs. And so that whole foreign policy apparatus that would deal with North Korea from the top down to the ambassador, and that is one of the toughest jobs you could possibly have. I met Matsugora's predecessor, Ambassador Timonen, back in 2005 in Moscow, when he was one of the senior foreign ministry officials dealing with the Korean Peninsula. And Matsugora was there for much, much longer, and he was holding a lot together. So there's something very interesting. I don't know if it's foreboding, but the timing of this is quite interesting. But to your question about Kim Joo-ae, who knows? Does even Kim Jong-un know what he's going to do? But at least he's showcasing her, fashion and all, leather jackets and all, in a way to make the point to the world, if not to his own people, that there will be continuity, and the continuity will be with a member of his own family. But whether it ultimately is her, or whether, as a former unification minister from some administrations past had said not too long ago, he believes that there could very well be a son who, much like Kim Jong-un, is studying in Switzerland, I don't know if the same school, and is actually the one who's being prepared, lying in wait for the right moment. But Kim Joo-ae is the one that gets the media attention, and but look, I think she's only 13. But she certainly matured to the role, both in terms of emotional and personality, as well as her physical growth and so forth. But it's very hard to imagine a woman, and particularly a very young woman, being able to take on the role that Kim Jong-il did for his father, Kim Il-sung, or that Kim Jong-un did Kim Jong-un did for his father, Kim Jong-il. It's generally been a man's role, and there's usually been some period of preparation. At the same time, there could be all sorts of unknowable possibilities in the weeks and months and years ahead that are utterly unscripted, utterly unprecedented. And my concluding point would be that in the end, North Korea is likely to find that its best friend is not going to be Russia, is not going to be China, is not going to be Donald Trump in the United States. It's going to be the people of his own flesh and blood, the people of Korea. And the people south of the DMZ, of the 38th parallel, will be his most reliable partners, and that will be the bottom line for him. He has to be embraced by whatever administrations in power in South Korea, because in the end, it's the people under him that you are embracing. That's why President Trump is in a historic position to do something that's totally out of the box and somehow put the technical state of war on the Korean Peninsula. And so we have to hope that he'll be able to do that, hopefully sooner than later, because once we have the November 2026 midterms in the United States, he's going to be underwater, and he's never probably going to resurface. He's going to be in trouble for the rest of his term.
Very important message to conclude our discussion here tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Barry.
You're welcome.
And of course, Dr. Bo.
My pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 그 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는 데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-sports. Experience the future of the news